All right, welcome back to Deep Vents. So this will be some gameplay. I'm gonna play against Manta here. I think this will be his new favorite game. He may not be in the game, but it is definitely around his neck of the woods for sure. So I explained how to play in the last video. I think mostly how to play. So there might still be some things to learn, especially in this video, because obviously I didn't explain how all the growth abilities work and trigger abilities work and all that. So we're going to get started right away. So I have the first player starts with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Archaea. So these are my Archaea right here, and you can barely see them, but Manta's Archaea are right up there, or Archaea are right up there. Now he gets to start with 11 because he's next in line. The first player gets 10. So I guess that would be the advantage of going last. You get more Archaea than the player who goes first. Now, a lot of people have said, I've read some reviews, that it seems the first player always wins. But the last game I played, the second player beat me by like 20 points. So it doesn't guarantee that if you go first, you'll win. I think it's also the tiles. If you get some of the best tiles here, you have a good chance of winning the game. So for first turn, my first turn, I'm going to put a cube on the Goblin Shark. Many probably would think I would go for that one first since I like sharks. But I'm actually going to take this giant tube worms here because I think it has one of the coolest abilities I've ever seen. And so I think I'm going to put that right there like that. Okay? So now we're going to activate the growth ability of the Deep Vents. When you activate the growth ability of the Deep Vents, you're going to add 2 Archaea to the Deep Vents. So that's the first one. Then we're going to activate the growth ability of the Giant Tube Worms. The Giant Tube Worms is going to get 1 Archaea for each adjacent heat and 1 for each adjacent rock. And so therefore the Giant Tube Worms here is going to actually get 2 Archaean as well for its growth ability. And that's the end of my turn. So the only thing else is we slide these over to the left and add 1 to the next one here, like that. And so now the Vampire Squid is the 5th tile. And of course, you can still access the 6th one, which is the Anglerfish. Now, it is Manta's turn. And for this turn, Manta is going to take that Goblin Shark. So he's going to get it, and he's going to put it, where's a good spot? How about maybe here? Yeah, that should be fine. That would be a good spot. I think that would work. Like that. I think that would work. But it would be more like that. Yeah, there we go. That looks better. Okay, so yeah, Goblin Shark's going to go there. Now, Manta's going to get to activate his growth ability for the Deep Vent and add 2 Archaea to it. And then the next hex tile, the Goblin Shark, gets to activate its growth ability, which adds 1 Archaea from each adjacent rock. Right now, there's only 1 adjacent rock, so the Goblin Shark's only going to get 1. But that's okay. It's close to getting to activate its trigger anyway. So, that's the end of the first round. Simple, right? And quick. That was pretty fast for the first round, obviously. Okay, so then obviously we just need to slide these over once each. And then now the Anglerfish is closer, obviously, to the equation, which is still pretty cool. Okay. For this turn, I'm actually going to go after the Vampire Squid. So I'm going to put 1 here, 1 there, and one there, so I can take the vampire squid. And I'm going to put the vampire squid, I think, well, maybe I'll put it here. I could do that. Maybe I'll put it like there. I think I would prefer that. Yeah, I think, or maybe not. Maybe we will put it right there after all. It's just a thought I'm having. Yeah, I think we'll put it there. Okay. So now that's how that's going to look. So now I'm going to trigger the Deep Vents ability here, which is going to allow me to take all the Archaea that's on this hex and add it to my supply over here, which triggers the vampire squid, which is right next to it. So I get to add one Archaea from the general supply box to the vampire squid. And now he still can't activate his trigger ability because he still only has one Archaea. So now the giant tube worm here is going to activate its growth again, which allows me to add 2 more Archaea to the giant tube worm. So that's how that's going to work. That's pretty cool. Okay, that's the end of my turn. So now we'll move that one over and add that one down there as well. Okay. So now it's Manta's turn over here. He's got a goblin shark. I think what he's going to do is he wants that porous rock. So he's going to take and put one Archaea there, one Archaea there, one Archaea there, and one Archaea on the anglerfish so he can claim the porous rock. And I think we'll put the porous rock right over here like this. There we go. That should work. Okay, so now the Deep Vent is going to get to trigger. So he's going to get 2 of his Archaea back, which is good for him, obviously. Let's put his over here. I think that would be wise. And then he's going to activate his growth ability for the Goblin Shark, which allows him to get now 2 Archaea because there's 2 adjacent rocks from the general supply. So his next turn he could attack me if he wanted to, which he probably will. And then he's going to activate the Porous Rocks ability, which is adding just simply 1 Archaea for the growth. So that's how that's going to work for the Porous Rock. Now his turn is done, and we're into round 3 already. So we're not quite halfway, but we're getting there on halfway through the game for sure. Now, this one here, which has the bull cachalot's name on it, that's a sperm whale for sure. So they eat giant squid, and they eat colossal squid. Usually, unless they die in the process. Sometimes they do. But that's going to go there now. So I think for this turn, I would like to get decisions. I would really like to get myself hands on that anglerfish for sure. But I also would like to get a tile here or over here for the giant tube worm's trigger ability, because I can spend 5 and then I get to add 1 Archaean from the general supply to all adjacent hexes. Then I also gain a shell. So I'm going to want to try to get as many hexes around this giant tube worm as possible. So decisions. I could get the anglerfish and still put it here or here for the bioluminescence, of course. That could be a good strategy, and that would still help out my giant tube worm's ability, of course. So, but, that giant squid is also pretty tempting as well. The giant oarfish, this one here, it adds 1 Archaean for each adjacent hex with 2 or more Archaea on it. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the giant oarfish for this turn. I think we're going to put it right here, like so. So actually it's going to go like this. There we go. So that's what I decided to do for my turn. I get to keep the Archaean that's already on it. So that's what's cool about taking a tile that has Archaean on it. You get to keep the Archaean will just stay there. So that's really cool. Let's see here. What should I go for next? Well, I, of course, have to activate the one that is highest up on the left. This one is highest up on the left, technically. But it's hard to say for sure, depending on how they're placed. It could be something more like this, of course. And that could make it this one go first instead. But I think we'll go like that and still say that this one is first. Yeah. So the Deep Vent is going to get 2 for the growth ability. And then the Giant Oarfish here would be next, and then the Vampire Squid would be after that. The Giant Oarfish is going to get 1 Arcane for each one of my adjacent tiles that have 2 or more on them. 2 or more Archaea on them. So, which is 2, exactly. So, I get to add 2 more to the Giant Oarfish. Then, if there was something I could do with that, I could activate that. But I can't, because there is not enough Archaea on it. So now I'm going to activate the Giant Tube Worm, and I get to add 1 more Archaea for each the rock and the heat. So 2 more for the Giant Tube Worms, and now there's 6 on there. So now on the next turn, I'll be able to finally trigger this ability. Now that's how that's going to work. Okay, now these are going to move over, like so. And now the Undersea Volcano is next. This one is a tile that will decimate tiles, including itself, when it reaches its limit. I think, let's see here. Let's see. I think that's what Manta's going to go for, actually. Manta's going to go for that Undersea Volcano. So he's going to put 1 Archaea on each of them, and then he's going to take the Undersea Volcano. And let's see here. Where's a good spot for it? Maybe next to this Deep Vent here. Maybe that would be good. That might be a good spot for it. Maybe. Okay, so now his Deep Vent ability is going to grow. So he's going to get 2 Archaea for that. Now, the way the Undersea Volcano is going to work is it's going to get 1 Archaea as its growth. And once it reaches 5, it automatically triggers. So you do not wait around for your next turn to trigger it. Once it has 5 Archaea on this hex, it automatically triggers, which will cause this one to decimate itself, but it will also cause your opponent to lose 1 hex of their choice as well. So it's powerful. So we'll add 1 to the growth of the Undersea Volcano. The Goblin Shark is going to attack now. So, actually, no, he is not going to attack. And the reason why Manta is not going to use the Goblin Shark to attack me right now is because the Goblin Shark has an ability. You'll notice there's this little symbol here with a shell on it. It's got a cross in it. So when the Goblin Shark attacks an opponent, the opponent is going to lose a shell, meaning if they only had 1 shell, they wouldn't be able to block the attack anyways, because they're first going to lose a shell, and then they'll take 1 additional Archaea damage. So right now, using the Goblin Shark to attack player 1 doesn't really give Manta any real benefit to doing it. It would be better to wait until I got a shell, then attack, so I would lose the shell. Obviously. But that not necessarily always be good either, because some of these predators are really strong when there are tons of these archaea on these hexes. So that's not always going to be the case. But for right now, I think it'll be fine. So we're not going to activate that. But we are going to trigger the porous rocks ability here. So by spending 1 archaea, you get to replace it and get a shell. So now Manta's got a shell in his inventory. So now he can block an attack, which is pretty sweet if I decide to attack him, if I get to attack him. Anyways, so now the Yeti crab will be added to the equation, and now we're on to round 4. So once we're done with round 4, we're halfway through the game, pretty much. Now that Yeti crab is very, very tempting. Very, very tempting. And I also want that anglerfish as well, if possible. Especially since it's already got that many. But he doesn't have... The only problem with the anglerfish, he's only got 1 bioluminescence. So that attack does not help me very much. But if he takes it, he can do some damage to me because I've already got 2 bioluminescence tiles. So not as much as he'd probably like. But I think what we'll do is I'm going to spend... Actually, I'm going to take this one. I'm going to take the Isopod Swarm instead. And I'm going to put it... it's not going to get to trigger its effect very often, but... so maybe we'll put it over here. Yeah. Or... maybe we'll put it over here. That could work. Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll just put it over there, next to the vampire squid. Anyways. Because it still will trigger at least once. So let's move that up a little bit. Okay. Let's move these up a little bit. They're getting in the way. Okay. So, how does this one work? This one took me a little while longer to understand myself. So it doesn't have a growth ability. So that's one problem with it. It doesn't have a growth ability. It has a... passive growth ability, similar to the vampire squid here. But the only way its passive ability works is if an opponent decimates a hex. Meaning, this Isopod Swarm here will activate its passive growth ability when my opponent over here decimates this hex, and decimates one of my hexes for that matter. And so, therefore, when it activates its passive growth ability, I get to add 5 archaea to the Isopod Swarm hex. This cube here, that's shaped like a octagon, sort of, this one is worth 5 archaea. So I could just instantly put this right on the Isopod Swarm. Now, what's another really cool thing about the trigger ability of this is when you activate the trigger of the Isopod Swarm, you're actually going to pay just 1 archaea from this hex tile. And then you get to keep the rest of the archaea still sitting on the hex when you activate the trigger. But you're also going to get a shell as well. So that's really, really cool. Very, very cool. And which is why I took it now, because it already had 3 on it anyways. And, you know, Manta's going to activate this at some point. So I'm going to at least get to activate this one more time. Or should I say trigger it one more time. Okay, so now I picked my tile. So I first have to activate the growth. And I think what we'll do is we will trigger the deep vent first, obviously, because that's the left highest. And then that allows me to add 1 archaea to the vampire squid, which means he'll be able to trigger his effect. But first, the giant oarfish is going to get to attack, and I think actually I'm going to hold off on its trigger as well. Yeah, so the way the trigger works for the archaea is you're going to lose 3 archaea from this, and it's only going to do damage to my opponent for every hex that has at least 3 archaea on it. And so therefore, it would only do 1 damage to him because only his Goblin Shark right now has 3 or more Archaea on it. So we're going to hold off and wait and see if he can get more of these tiles with 3 or more, especially when the Undersea Volcano reaches 3. That might be worth doing. So we'll just activate the Giant Oarfish's growth ability, which allows me to add 1 more for each adjacent hex that has 2 or more Archaea on it. So I'm only going to get to add 1 more Archaea to the Giant Oarfish because there's only 1 adjacent. Now I finally get to trigger the Vampire Squid's ability. So I get to take 2 off of the Vampire Squid to pay for the ability to trigger it. Now I get to attack my opponent. Manta here is going to lose 1 of his Archaea. So there goes 1 of his Archaea cubes. And then I automatically gain 1 Archaea from the general supply to my supply. So that's why you might want to do that once in a while. Now, the giant tube worm's finally going to get to activate its ability by paying 5 Archaea. I get to add 1 Archaea from the general supply to all adjacent hexes and then gain 1 shell. So I get to pay all 5 of these to trigger. Okay. And then I get to add all the surrounding hexes, 1 adjacent to all of them. So 1's going to get added to the Giant Oarfish, 1 to the Deep Vent, 1 to the Vampire Squid, and 1 to the Giant Isopod. And then I also get a shell for my troubles as well. So now I finally have a shell, but that means Manta is obviously going to use his Goblin Shark, obviously, at some point. Okay, that's pretty cool. But remember, I triggered this giant tube worm. So now the Vampire Squid's going to get another Archaea on it. So on my next turn, I'll be able to trigger Vampire Squid again. Now the Isopod Swarm here, I'm going to go ahead and trigger this one as well. So I pay 1 of these Archaeas to the general supply. I get to keep the rest of them for my supply, which is quite a bit now for my supply. And I get a shell from my troubles. So now I have 2 shells. So yes, Manta here is going to get rid of 1 of my shells, but I'll still have 1 after that. And now my turn is done. But hold on, my turn is not done because I triggered this one as well. That means the Vampire Squid is going to get another Archaea on that tile as well. And so now my turn is done. So that was a powerful little turn. A lot was accomplished on that turn. So now the Yeti Crab is a little bit closer to the left. Not by much, but a little bit. Of course, I don't think Manta's going to go for it because Manta has only 4 Archaea in his supply left. So that might not be very wise to do that. So I think Manta is just going to go for the first one, which is the giant squid right here. It already has 3 Archaea on it. And yes, it adds another bioluminescence to him as well. So it would be worthwhile to put the giant squid up here next to his deep vent. There we go. Sweet. All right. So that's how that works. Okay. All right. Let's fix this a little bit. Okay, there we go. Actually, I think it's actually probably activated more like this. You would activate this one first, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. Even though technically these are in the same row, I think because these are adjacent, they would be activated. It's hard to say. I'm just going to go with this for this turn. Okay, so he's got the giant squid now, and it's got 3 Archaea on it, so he can spend it now, and he will. He's going to spend all 3 of these Archaea, and his giant squid gets to activate its trigger, which is going to cause me 4 damage. Ouch. So I could just end up taking all 4 damage right now. But you know what? I'm going to utilize my shell. I'm going to use a shell to take off half the damage. So I get to keep these 2 cubes, and instead I'll pay this. That's how that works. So that at least keeps me from losing all of that Archaea, which is obviously a very good thing, because I still have quite a bit Archaea. Okay, now he's going to trigger his Deep Vent, and he's going to get 2 Archaea back to his supply. Then he's going to activate the Goblin Shark's ability and pay 3 Archaea to do that. And now he gets to attack me. So now I'm going to lose my shell, plus I'm going to lose another Archaea from my supply as well. So now I'm back down to 0 shells. But at least they served their purpose. And then Manta here is going to activate his growth ability for the Undersea Volcano, and he's going to activate his growth ability for the Porous Rock, and then his turn is done. And that's how this game works, folks. I think that's good enough to explain how this game works. We've played half of the game now. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon.